Hi, it's good to see everyone. I'm Deacon Ed Schoner, President of the Association of Catholic Mental Health Ministers, and we're here for our monthly webinar on a mental health ministry topic that I know will be of great interest to many of you. I get lots of questions about this, about how other folks have started their mental health ministry at a diocesan level. This is directly in response to a lot of those requests for that kind of information. So we have with us today Dick Collier from the Archdiocese of San Francisco, and he'll talk about how he's implemented a mental health ministry along with many other folks. This is always a group effort, along with many other folks in the Archdiocese. They've been at it now for a couple years, 3 or 4 years now, and it's up and running, and it's a good ministry. So I'll give you a little background on Dick. Dick is the mental health ministry project manager for the Archdiocese of San Francisco, and he comes to this position with many years of experience in the business world, business leadership in both corporate and the nonprofit worlds. And like I said, he's been working for the Archdiocese in the mental health ministry for the last 3 years, and recently organized a mental health ministry conference in the Bay Area called Hope and Healing, which attracted over 100 people to the Bay Area to the conference. Dick, I know I've gotten to know Dick a bit now over the last couple of years. We've gotten to know each other. He has a lot of compassion for those who struggle with unemployment, homelessness, disability, addictions, and being fatherless. And over the past year, he and his wife Patty have owned and operated a sober living home in the Oakland area for those dealing with substance abuse. He's made it a point to write about the ministry a bit. He recently authored an article on breaking down the stigma to overcome mental health challenges for the diocesan newspaper in the Archdiocese of San Francisco. And he's a graduate of St. Francis de Sales School for Pastoral Ministry. He has 4 children and soon to be 7 not great, you're not that old yet, Dick, 7 grandchildren. And it's good being a grandpa, right, Dick?
Yes,
So I'll turn it over to you, Dick, for your presentation. And I would ask people, when you have questions, put it into the Q&A or the chat for questions, and at the end we'll go through those questions and try to get them answered. And as Dick's speaking, there will also be links in the chat for some of the materials he's referencing as he goes through the talk. So hopefully the Zoom powers to be at Zoom will cooperate with us on all of this. And I'll turn it over to you, Dick. And so thanks for doing this, Dick.
All right, thank you, Deacon Ed and Kate, for putting this on today. I really appreciate the opportunity. I would like to just kind of give you a little bit of background here, kind of a diocesan perspective, how to start mental health ministries and parishes. That's what we call the start a mental health ministry on diocesan level. So that's what this material we're going to cover. And it's all going to be available to everyone with a number of handouts that Kate will be posting after the webinar. Okay. So if we go to our next slide, Kate.
Are you able to see it?
Can you go to this slide, the next one?
Yeah. You're not able to see my forwarding of slides?
No, which one? I'm trying to get to this. Yep.
I'll stop the share and reshare. I'll see if that helps.
Yep.
Of course, it got cranky with us. Let's see.
No, that's okay. We're
all right. Okay.
There we go. So this is all about trying to break down the stigma. And we're using this picture in a lot of our literature going forward now. We found this a few months ago. And it really is kind of signify that, you know, we are caught, right? We're kind of caught in this mental health cycle, and we really need to break away. So as these doves or birds are flying away, that's the goal. So that's the goal of what we had here in the Archdiocese of San Francisco, and I'm sure all of you have similar goals in your respective areas. Next slide. Oh, looks like I can control it, Kate.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
To give you a little bit of background on San Francisco, we're a large urban and suburban diocese, widely diverse, ethnically, culturally, economically. We do cover 3 counties. A lot of people don't know that, but we do cover San Mateo, San Francisco, and Marin counties, which is north of San Francisco. Then we have Oakland Diocese next to us, Santa Rosa North, and San Jose South. So we're surrounded by 3 other dioceses in the broader Bay Area of San Francisco. Early on, we started this a little over 3 years ago. And it was pretty clear that we had a general lack of support for families and individuals suffering from mental illness. And the Archdiocese itself really had no organizational structure to provide resources. Yes, there was other ministries, there's grief ministries, there's prison ministries, et cetera, but there was nothing really focused on and around mental health. So then the question came, well, why did we start it? Well, the first thing kind of drove us there was responded to the Hope and Healing California Bishop's pastoral letter from May of 2018. I'm sure a number of you have read through that. It's a nice read. It's about 11 pages long. It's got 6 key points that are made in there. And that really did start us in the Diocese of San Francisco start thinking about what could we do, right, along these lines to bring help and assistance to the parish level. Well, we're very fortunate that the Diocese of San Diego, who was several years ahead of us, I really think is kind of the poster child of how this is done and done well. A gentleman, Kent Peters, and another colleague from NAMI spent a number of years talking about getting mental health ministries in parishes, and lo and behold, they finally got together and decided that time was right. So we were fortunate in that we've been able to leverage the model that they had out of San Diego. It was geared towards the diocese, very top down. I was given all the material from Kent, so we had a good starting place. In fact, an awful lot of material that we had to kind of sort through and tailor to what we needed in San Francisco. And the last piece is that we were given a grant. There was 5 dioceses in the country that were given grants, and San Francisco was one of them. And we were really excited about getting that, which kind of pushed us forward to doing something along these lines. So when you think about major steps, we have kind of 5 major steps here that I'll walk you through. And the first one was creating a position in the Archdiocese to have someone come in and be responsible to organize and implement the ministries that participate in parishes. So that's kind of where I came in just over 3 years ago. But once we kind of started getting organized around what do we want to do, we had the material from San Diego. We felt that the most important part was getting the clergy involved, the clergy awareness and support for a ministry. So we ended up planning a clergy luncheon. We had about a little over 40 pastors and other priests that attended. We brought in the folks from San Diego to talk about the ministry. We had Father Soroki from Our Lady of Mount Carmel, who gave a nice talk on what it meant to be having a ministry team to support the pastor, which really felt was really a strong message. We had Kent Peters come in and talk about how they built the ministry. So this awareness luncheon that we had with the clergy, we kind of finished it off with, okay, who's interested? Who's interested in having us follow up further with you at the parish level? So we had it's kind of like called a statement of interest, just a little 1-pager. We'll send this out in the material afterwards. And if the pastor was interested, he would check the box or his name in, tell us when they wanted to meet. And then I'd go in and have a conversation with the pastor. We also had a deacon luncheon prior to that. So we had probably 30 or 40 deacons that attended. So the key thing was get the clergy on board. They play a critical role in getting this ministry started at the parish. So once we had the pastor and we found out that they were interested, and I talked to them and sat down with themselves and potentially another leader of the parish or someone that they potentially would want on the team, we had to schedule some type of recruitment. He needed to have a team. I mean, the team didn't exist. There was probably people in his parish that were interested. There's people that the pastor would know that would be interested. So we held a recruitment lunch, or I'm sorry, recruitment workshop. We had this in person. This was before COVID. We had this in person at the parishes. Whoever wanted to attend. And I'll talk a little bit further about what that workshop looked like. But that was kind of our first starting point of creating a team for the pastor. Another kind of key step in rolling this out is coming up with standards and guidelines. So as we built out these ministry teams, they had a lot of questions. And those questions turned into material, turned into information that we wanted to standardize on. So one of the key documents that we created was like just a one-pager. We had a lot of one-pagers and two-pagers. A one-pager that talked about what the role of the volunteer was like on these ministry teams. So it's kind of the do's and don'ts of the volunteer. And that was kind of really, really critical because the teams are not paid positions. They're volunteers within the parish, just lay ministry leaders. So we built a lot of that into our process too. And of course, the last piece is, the team needed to be trained. And so we came up with training that I'll discuss a little bit more detail here shortly, but it's really kind of a grassroots training. We leveraged what we had from San Diego, built off some of that, and laid out a training plan. So those are kind of key steps. I probably wouldn't change those too much if I went to another diocese to do this, but it kind of gets you grounded in what this, how we started and kind of the major steps of how we implemented this. Let's talk a little bit further about the recruitment workshop. So we kind of had four things that we wanted to cover in the recruitment workshop. One was share background on mental health, share what we knew what San Diego had done. We had some videos at that point that we'd taken from the clergy luncheon. We wanted to share the vision of what we saw, a network, if we get this community built in the Archdiocese where we have parishes from multiple counties, multiple locations, they could really, in the long term, kind of leverage each other, work off each other. We could share a lot of common practices and material from the Archdiocese down to these ministry teams. That's kind of what we've tried to do. So we kind of share the vision. And then also talk about how the ministry will operate and work at the parish level. Again, these are, we're giving them guidelines and kind of lines kind of in the sand where we don't want to cross this line. We got to stay within the ministry boundaries. And then the last question is that we ask is a questionnaire that we gave them. Think of it kind of like an application for joining the ministry team to help them discern whether or not they want to participate. So little two-pager, and we're going to share that too afterwards. And first page is just information about themselves and how long they've been in their parish, different types of ministries they've been on. But the last two questions I think really hit the key points. One is, why do they want to do this, right? Explaining why do they want to do this. And then the second question is, what in their background has really kind of prepared them to become part of a ministry team? And these are kind of key questions. And in a perfect world, right, it's not all perfect, but in a perfect world, they fill that out. They submit it to the parish. The pastor looks at it, he reads through it, and he decides who's on his team, right? And he may say Tom, Sally, Johnny, they're the right ones to be on team. Maybe not Fred. Maybe Fred should be more on maybe a little bit more of a background role. Maybe he's on the prayer team supporting the ministry. So the pastor ultimately is going to pick his team. And we ask the pastor to find one, if not two, people from his parish that can lead these teams, because it's very important that they have good, strong leadership. It does not mean they have to be professionals in mental health at all. In fact, we want to have a mix on those teams of professionals and non-professionals. And we'll talk about that a little bit further. But that's kind of the way the workshop went. It was about 90 minutes, a lot of Q&A. a lot of discussion. As we kind of work through the different parishes, the material and the understanding of how we want to standardize some things and build guidelines grew and grew and grew. So as I think the parishes that got the last bit of the recruitment workshops probably got a better deal. They had more information. We'd come further along. We knew a little bit better what we wanted to do. So there's kind of three key roles on these ministry teams, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen these already, but I think of it as like a three-legged stool. It's a very strong stool when they're all working really, really well. The first one is around spiritual companionship. This is what separates us from secular society. We can bring the accompaniment, the spiritual companionship, the pastoral side of mental health into the equation. So you want to have a couple people on this team, on your team at the parish level, that are pastoral, right? And they're good listeners, and they can just sit and listen, and they don't have to answer the questions. The one thing we found in this ministry is we don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to fix things. But it's very important that whoever is in the spiritual companionship role on that ministry team does it, and does it really, really well. The second piece is practical support. So it's very important that the parish knows where the resources are geographically to their parish, whether that's folks that are in their parish that are involved in not ministry, but maybe they're therapists of different nature. It might be within their parish, or maybe within the county and this, or the city that they're in. They know where the resources are. So when someone comes to them, they can share, hey, we found some resources here. You might be interested in checking in on those. And then the third piece is educational opportunities. So every parish has a need to learn more about mental health. It's really, really important. And this is something that I coach the teams is before you build your teams out, you can start right there and start educating your parish. If you have a couple of people on your parish team that really know this area well, give that responsibility to them and have them put on some seminars, and maybe they have some video series that they want to have at night, or maybe they want to talk with other people in the local area to come in and put on events. There's certainly a lot of different ministries that are out there that people can kind of tap into. So that's educational opportunities. And what I tell the teams too is that they tend to get, they struggle with the spiritual companionship. It's like, how far do they go with that? Where's that role fall in play? We don't really have people coming to us. What can we do? We don't want to just sit around and wait. Well, you can build out your practical support, your resources, and you can educate your parish. I mean, even if you didn't have anybody come to the parish with a mental health challenge for themselves or for their loved ones, you can always build in practical support, and you can always educate the parish. So those are the three main roles of the teams. Teams do not have to be large. Some teams are as small as 3 or 4 people, and others might be 7, 8, 9, 10 people. It all depends on what the needs and the size of the parish are. And if you do this well, I mean, we can radically transform the parish, right? Where no one's alone on the journey. No one's excluded from participating in parish life. So getting to that healing and recovery process. I have one more piece here on the teams. This is kind of a busy slide, but if we just kind of focus in on the top is, whether your team members are professionals or non-professionals, there's kind of a don't do list. And here's kind of a sample. I mean, they cannot bring their professional relationship outside the church into this discussion, right? They can't prescribe, modify, evaluate medication. I mean, all these things are a complete no-no. And if you find somebody on your parish team that is starting to go across that line, they need to leave the team, right? If they're a professional, they have to leave the professional at the door. Certainly their experience comes into the discussion, but they have to leave their professional responsibilities at the door, right? And that last bullet's kind of a catch-all. Any services typically provided by mental health professionals. And I had a gentleman, just tell you a quick story. I had a gentleman on one of our parish recruitment workshops. He was a therapist, and he struggled with looking at, okay, where would he fit into this parish team? Because that's his experiences, and he wants to help and support and do all the things that a therapist would do. And it dawned on him as we went through the 3 pillars there of the team, that one around educational opportunities, I mean, he was perfectly fit for that. He could come in and actually put on the training of the awareness seminars and educational seminars. So he kind of answered his own question just by seeing that, okay, maybe I don't want to be on the spiritual companionship because I don't want to cross the line, or it may go too far with my experiences in there. Well, why don't I just go on the educational side of the team? So there you have it. So that people do find the right places. The teams do need to sit down and have a lot of discussion around what they like to do, what works for them, where they see their responsibilities, how much time they can allocate to something like this, which is really, really important. Okay. So let me shift over to training. This was an area that we really didn't have anything lined up. We had some ideas about what we might want to do as far as train the parishes now that they have a team. And we want something that we could kind of cycle through and apply to the other parishes as we move forward and through the rest of the teams. We have right now 13 teams, parish teams that have been fully trained. We probably got another 5 to 7 that say have expressed a lot of interest. So hopefully we can get them on board now that we're getting out of the COVID era a little bit, that we can have maybe in-person training on some of these. Either way, we videotaped and we have that we can use. We got caught in the middle of COVID. We were about ready to have a full-blown training session with all the speakers to come in, and COVID hit, and we really had to back up and realign how are we going to train the parishes. Unfortunately, we had a parish, St. Matthew's, and Monsignor Tales for, who was willing to kind of be a guinea pig with his parish on all of this, and said, hey, we'll try this. Let's push ahead and see if we can do this online. So we ended up having the speakers change up their material, and then we ended up doing through Zoom. It wasn't perfect. We got through it. We got better as we went, but it certainly was a challenge. A lot of this stuff is really meant to be in person if at all possible. So the first piece of training, we have 5 pieces here that I'll be going through. The first piece was NAMI. We had the executive director for San Francisco come in and give a mental health 101. And if you haven't ever taken that, I encourage you to take it. It's very, very good. She also had 2 other people that had been struggling with mental health challenges for many, many years, and they gave their testimonials. And they really brought to the discussion that the idea of being able to get into recovery and that there is hope. And that was a really good add-on to her material. When we had someone talk about coping skills for caregivers, they were focused a lot on Alzheimer's and dementia. And the coping skills, they'll apply to any caregiver that's dealing with a loved one that's being challenged, right, with any type of situation. Third piece was around communication. It was important that we talked about how do you communicate to someone that's struggling with a mental health challenge, or they're coming to you because of their loved one. So if someone kind of walks up and says, my son's bipolar, what do I do? How do you react to that? So this was a session around communication, bringing spiritual guidance into it, and really understanding mental health and what you might be up against when you meet parishioners coming to the parish. The fourth one was a deep dive implementation. So after we got through these first 3, I was asked the question, well, this is great, but how do we do it, right? How do we do it at a parish level? We need to go a little bit deeper. So I pulled out the Catholic Mental Health Ministry Guidelines for Implementation, which some of you have probably seen. from the University of San Diego. And in there, they have a whole section around how to implement mental health in your parish, and how step by step, blow by blow of how to do this. And so I put that together, and that seemed to answer that question. And then we had one last piece is, okay, once we got through all this, there was, the question came up was, okay, this is great, but you haven't done it. We'd like to talk to somebody that has done it. So we had Lori Dusa from Our Lady of Mount Carmel. They were probably a good 5 years ahead of us into this. And she's still on the team after many years. She's a co-team leader for that parish. We had her, it's almost like an interview session, Q&A, one-on-one. We had all the teams that had been trained up to that point, and they weigh in and ask questions of her too. And we videoed it, and it was, I think, a really, really good training session that answered a lot of questions, and she could answer it from experience, that this is what worked for them, this didn't work, think about this, think about that. We got into a lot of discussion around confidentiality. That was a big topic. So that's in a nutshell kind of what we've put together. So we have 5 main pieces of our training program. So that piece I mentioned around implementation, these are kind of the steps to implement it at your parish. You got to educate your parish. You got to understand it. You got to understand what the covenant is, who you're going to serve, what programs, outreach do you need, how to not be complacent, how to be advocates, and then how to measure progress, because that's really important as you build these teams. Every 6 months or so is to pause, reflect, and check in and see how we're doing and adjust from there. Okay, and a little reference there at the bottom of where this came from. Okay. So I got a couple more slides here. I want to put something here around lessons. What have we learned now that we've been into this for about 3 years, and we got a number of parishes up and running? And these are kind of thoughts that we've actually put in the one of our year-end reports. Is that you need to focus on those parishes and pastors that really want this ministry. What we found is that if the pastor's lukewarm, move on. If you've called the pastor multiple times and he says yes, 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 but he still can't make that commitment, you're gonna move on for a while. It doesn't mean you give up on him, but I think you just have to kind of move on, because you can spend an awful lot of cycle time just dealing day in and day out, trying to get someone to agree that this is a good thing. Now, I have not had anybody that I've sat in front of and talked about mental health ministry at a parish level say it's a bad idea. Everybody has said, yes, we need it, we need more of it. But to get them to actually commit to having a team is another step. Leverage external expertise. There's a lot of people out there that can help you, not only in your own community, but in the secular community. I mean, NAMI is, I think, a great resource for any ministry team that is getting started. Lots of resources there. They can talk you through a lot of this stuff. And so don't think you have to do it all yourself. There is others that can help. And even when you've built your team and you're moving forward, this whole area of mental health it's a moving playing field, right? So continue to educate and build awareness in your team. So the teams need to constantly be renewing, retraining, finding other things that are out there that could be used in their ministry. So it's all good stuff. So continue to build your team. You don't have to have all the answers. I mentioned that earlier. You don't have to have all the answers for someone that's coming for help. And there is no timetable on this. Some teams move quickly, right? They organize fast. They've got the expertise on the team that knows where they want to go, and they kind of get up and run and go. Other teams are going to struggle. They're going to need more support. They may have people leave the team. I have a parish right now that the team leaders have moved. I mean, they've moved to other locations and stuff, outside the area. And so their leadership is struggling. So how do we get that team back on track? Or does it pause for a while and then come back kind of with different leadership? But there is no timetable, as much as we want to get there quickly. And I think the last, but in a lot of ways most important, is ongoing prayer. Ongoing prayer over the team. Ongoing prayer over all the people that we're encountering on this journey. We can't go alone. We need to have Jesus in the middle of this. We really, really do. And form a prayer team within the team. There's probably a person or two that's very gifted there, and have them play a very significant role. But don't forget the importance of ongoing prayer. So we just completed a mental health conference called Hope and Healing that the Archdiocese of San Francisco sponsored just about a month, just under 2 months ago. And the focus of this, we couldn't have done this 3 years ago because we just weren't quite sure where we were headed with all this, but we felt that it was time that we could bring together the broader Bay Area, have people from other dioceses join us, other parishes in those dioceses join us. We had about a little over 100 that attended. We had 2 keynote talks, and they're listed there, Mental Health 101 and Coping Skills, because I felt that those were 2 that everyone needed to hear, and it'd be a good topics. We had 6 breakout sessions. I have 4 of them listed here. One, suicidal prevention, depression as it relates to COVID, addiction, substance abuse, and mental health challenges in children and youth. This is an area that we felt strongly that we need to focus more on, is children and youth. And certainly with COVID and the situation with schools and everything, it was really, really important that we had something in there on that. We also had another one on dealing with our culture, the struggle of our culture. And then another one was the psychological kind of versus spiritual connection point of mental health. So they're all well attended. We're hoping we got good feedback on it. We're hoping to probably have this again, maybe next year. But I want to kind of wrap up with that one, because that was something that we just recently did. And we did it at the diocese level. You could not have done this at like a parish level. We did it at the diocese level in support of all the parishes. So it was open to the public. Before we go to questions, I got 2 more slides in here that you'll see in the material that we send out. We had a couple parish team leaders that kind of gave their thoughts on the ministry after we've been into it for a couple of years. So there's a slide in there. And then there's one more slide on what does it mean for a parish to belong to the mental health ministry network. And we have it broken into like 3 pieces. What's it mean to the pastor? What's it mean to the mental health ministry team? And what's it mean for the families and individuals of the parish? Okay. And now, Kate, I think we're on to questions.
Yeah, we have a number of questions here. The first one, is this like the Stephen Ministers program?
I'm somewhat familiar with the Stevens ministry, but I think it's much broader. Because we're dealing with all aspects of mental health. So it's anybody that's dealing with any type of mental health challenge, whatever that could be. So it's covering all of that. But yeah, that Stevens ministry plays a role.
Okay. Here's another one. Someone works for Stanford as well as NAMI, and is a coach of individuals with and she coaches individuals with mental health and chronic pain issues, referred to her by psychologists in the area as well as Stanford physicians. she attended the St. John Paul Foundation conferences in previous years, and it's been mentioned that it's very dangerous to not allow New Age principles and secular principles to mingle with Catholics, with Catholic thought. Any comments on this? So I guess New Age kind of thoughts and practices mixed in with the ministry.
Well, we're Catholic, right?
Mhm.
So this is a Catholic ministry at a parish. So we have to stay true to ourselves too. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to get assistance and help and benefits and in other areas, but I think we have to stay kind of true to who we are.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Another question is, what role, if any, does Catholic Charities play in the process, or do they not provide mental health services?
Well, we had in our archdiocese, probably right about the time that we started this ministry, a lot of funding. I don't have all the detail on this, but funding got pulled around their behavioral health component of Catholic Charities. So we didn't really have anybody we could go to. So, you know, people have actually kind of come to us. And Ed Hofner just said, no, Catholic Charities no longer provides mental health services at all. So in our situation, we don't really have anybody that we work with or use.
How important is it to have a hired person at the diocesan level to coordinate this ministry?
I think it's I think it's important to have. It helps. I think it helps certainly to have someone, because that's kind of their job, their role, to stay on top of. I don't think you necessarily have to have that, but it is going to take commitment of time, you know, to get this up and running. So I think if it was more of a paid position, I think you'll have. I think you'll get more out of it.
Can I ask just a question on that, Dick,
Sure.
because I get this question a lot too, about how many hours a week roughly have you been putting in on this over the last couple of years? And
Probably 15.
15 hours per week.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
what do you see?
Part-time. Go ahead.
What do you see going forward? Do you think this could be sustainable on its own, or does it require some sort of?
Oh, it's going to require some care and feeding, you know.
Okay.
I think once we have another piece here that we're working on, which is packaging everything that we've done over the last 3 years and handing it off to the association here, where people can kind of pick and choose the pieces that they want to use, right? So if they want to engage with the clergy, get the clergy excited about this, and here, use this material, or take it and modify it to the way that you see fit. If you want to have recruitment workshops, here's the material. If you want to have training, here's videos that tie to the training. So if someone else comes in later, the stuff is more packaged, it's easier to use. You don't have to start from scratch. I think it'll be less time, right?
It sounds like it's been part-time, and probably someone at some point could work it into the other job duties. I mean, a full-time.
Yeah, I think that's the goal, right?
Yeah. I didn't catch it. Maybe you said at the beginning, how many parishes are participating in the Archdiocese?
We have 13 have been fully trained, but I said we probably have 5 to 7 more that we're hoping to get there. So if we get to 20, I think 20 would be a pretty good goal for us to have.
Okay.
Another question is, have you used mental health first aid in your training that you do at the diocesan level?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I forgot about that. We had Deacon Ed Schoner just came out last August to San Francisco. We had about 30 parish team members covering 10 parishes that attended the first mental health first aid training. It was well received. They got a lot out of it. We're hoping to have that again at some point.
Couple other questions here. Once a team is formed, how does a parish invite? Bulletin notice, word of mouth, mass announcements, etc. What other recommendations would you have?
Well, some of the teams have built websites, right? They built a spot on their parish website where they'll advertise, acknowledge the mental health team, how to contact them, whether it's through email or whether it's through a phone number. We have, I'm going to share with you also, we have a brochure that I sent to Kate, and we'll put in the material at the end. So we create a brochure at the diocesan level that kind of explains all about the team. And then the parish team can then, there's a spot on the back where they can put their contact information. They can have it at the back of the parish and hand it out at different times, where they'll have ministry sessions are going on or what have you, and they can hand this stuff out. So website seems to be one way, brochure seems to be another way, word of mouth seems to be one that works well too.
Okay.
So there's no real set way of doing it.
Would it be helpful to tap into an established diocesan office and look to a person in place to do this work? So I think I think what the question is, would it be better to tap into an existing diocesan office when looking to start this ministry or create something new?
Yeah, let's answer the question so we didn't have a role, or we didn't have anything around mental health, and it was placed under marriage and family life at the Archdiocese of San Francisco. So that's where I roll up into. Ed Hoffner, who was the director of marriage and family life. So you need to find a spot where this ministry should reside, right? And so if you don't have a lot, you have to create one. So we're in the pastoral ministry department for the Archdiocese. And as Ed said, he really felt that they needed a separate person to start this, since everybody else kind of was funded on other work.
Have you provided a retreat for ministers? Any advice on that topic of offering retreats?
Well, we had the mental health conference, which was a little bit of a retreat a couple months ago. Some of the parishes, their teams have had their own get-togethers and retreats, and a day away to kind of reflect and share on how things are going. We haven't specifically sponsored anything ourselves. We had the conference, we've had the mental health first aid, which we kind of sponsored to get going, but we haven't really sponsored like that. But I think that's a good idea. And I think it could be a very good idea. And I could see a number of parish leaders that would want to come.
Did the initial invitation to the clergy to attend the luncheon come from the diocese, such as a letter from the bishop? How did you invite people?
Yes, it did. It came from our Archbishop. He sent a letter to the clergy. We scheduled this. He helped advertise and support it. He showed up at the clergy luncheon. So it all got off to a good start.
I'm just curious, Dick, at that initial clergy luncheon, about how many of the parishes said they were interested, at least? I'm just wondering what the statistics were.
I stick right around that 20 number.
About 20 parishes? Yeah. Out of how many in the whole diocese? How many? What's the?
We have about 90 parishes.
So about 20 of them said they were interested. Okay.
Right.
And you went on to train. Okay, so you're hoping to get up to that 20 at some point.
Right.
I see.
Right.
So that's interesting. So 70 of them said no, thank you for the moment, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or they didn't attend. I mean, we had about 40 clergy attend, and they covered over 20 parishes that actually attend. They all didn't attend. It's hard to get everybody to come, right? It's like anything.
Sure.
To come, but,
what were some of the objections? What were some of the concerns that they didn't want to do it?
I don't know. I don't know specifically, but there's pastors and other clergy. They're just not they're, I think, nervous and concerned about starting something like this. And I think that's kind of a general concern, is it's one more thing, right? One more thing in our parish. And I think when we had Father Soroki from Our Lady of Mount Carmel in San Diego give his talk to the clergy, and we have a 6-minute video posted on our Archdiocesan website, and I think it might be posted on the association.
Yeah, what's up on our
Father
site?
Soroki, and if a pastor listens to that, he gives a pretty compelling story of, yes, it's hard to get started. It's not easy. You have to have the right people. But reflecting back on it now, he's got a separate group that is able to assist him with mental health in his parish, which he didn't have before. So I think once they hear to see the outcome and see the benefit of it, I think more would probably be interested in joining. But it's just hard to get people to move.
Yeah, his little talk is very compelling, that 5-6 minute talk. Yeah.
How is mental health support / ministry provided to the pastors and the mental health ministers providing the spiritual support at the parish level? Are there ongoing diocesan meetings and training?
We have, I don't know if this answers the question, but we have meetings with the parish team leads every other month. We had them every month, and now we're having them every other month. It seems to be a little bit better, and they're kind of focused on very targeted situations or issues that the team leaders want to talk about. As far as how they are engaging, and then we do have a couple of pastors that show up at those meetings from time to time. So it all depends, on how engaged the pastor wants to be with his team, and if they want to have additional training. We're doing our work, we're pushing this out. It's really up to them to kind of operate. They're kind of a standalone parish operating a mental health ministry, but they're part of a broader network across the archdiocese, which is where the archdiocese falls into place to help them. So we'll deal with additional training, additional issues that may rise up to the diocesan level we'll take on, but the local stuff, they're gonna have to deal with it. So if they want additional training, or they want to get their pastor more involved, or however they want to do it within their parish, they can do it however they want, as long as they stay within the boundaries of the ministry, the guidelines of having a ministry at their parish.
Okay. Do you offer any trainings in Spanish, such as the Mental Health 101 that you've mentioned?
That has been a challenge. We have a few things in Spanish, like we have the brochure in Spanish, but we haven't had the training in Spanish. We've had requests from people to have that. We just haven't been able to find probably the time or the people to be able to do that at this point. Mm-hmm. What I do suggest that really any parish, especially in the Bay Area, is to have 1 or 2 members on your team that are bilingual. I think that's very helpful, and hopefully they can help connect some of the dots to their communities. But that's been a challenge. That's been a big issue.
Here's another says, I am new to our Diocesan Respect Life / Human Rights Office. I was originally working on implementing this ministry through our offices, but recently found out I will probably play more of a supportive role. How can other offices / ministries in a diocese help to support implementation? And maybe specifically, how can someone in a Respect Life / Human Rights / Family Life office help build this up?
Do we have Ed Hoffner? Is he able to connect into this?
Let's see.
Well, I can answer this a little bit. The experience I had with Archdiocese of Los Angeles. So, for example, it was the One Life event, the pro-life march in January. I spoke at it as that respect for life goes from conception to natural death and everything in between. So they had me speaking about the importance of mental health as a pro-life issue. So there's things like that you can do. Also, the Rachel's Vineyard Ministry has a mental health component to it, of course. So there's things that can work together on this and support the ministry.
I would say it really depends on the diocese. Some are very collaborative, some are not. The young adult and youth ministry people are sometimes very interested. We tried to work with the schools department, but because San Francisco was so locked down, the schools department have all their hands full just trying to get the schools back online as they ordinarily would. But we're still talking with them. We talked about trying to do the mental health 101 training for teachers, or at least teachers who are interested. Or excuse me, mental health first aid or mental health 101, either one, and offering those. And then, of course, like they said, the Respect Life, we have a prison ministry that's pretty active, and we're trying to see if we can get some of those people interested. But it depends on their interest and their availability. And right now, we actually don't see each other a lot in our archdiocese because we're still just coming back from being locked down. So we have 2 years of not really talking to each other, not intentionally, but just because of the way things have been. So there are a lot of possibilities for cross-fertilization. It just really depends on the diocese, what they're able to do and how open people are.
The other thing, I see Rachel Chung from the Archdiocese of Washington commented that the Office of Disability Ministries is a good fit for this ministry too. Yeah, and there's
absolutely.
Yeah. So I know a couple of dioceses around the country. You're right, Ed. A couple dioceses around the country, this ministry has found a home in that part of the chancery, so to speak. And the National Catholic Partnership on Disability supports this with the Mental Illness Council and provides other material to support. So that's a good fit in that office.
You mentioned earlier a Q&A video, a conversation that you had with a woman. Will we be able to have access to that video?
Yes.
Okay.
We're part of that package that we're talking about putting together from a diocesan level. That is one of the videos that we will have available, because I think it does answer and hit a lot of the questions that people have when they first start up their ministry.
That was, who was that with, Dick? That was from
Lori Dusa from Our Lady of Mount Carmel
in the Diocese of San Diego.
Diocese of San Diego, yes.
Okay, and it looks like I see one final question here. And it says, mental illness versus gun violence, as witnessed this past week, is providing unfair blame on mental illness. Any thoughts on how mental health ministry can address this fairly, and would it be appropriate?
Wow. Well, we're kind of in a tough place sometimes, and what is actually happening out in society, right? We get these different events that impact people around us. It's on the news. And our friends, family members are talking about it. I don't think there's any easy answer on that. I think we have to, probably our biggest attribute is to the ability to listen, right? Listen to others, listen to people that are struggling, whether they're struggling with mental health or something else. Again, we can't solve all these things. There's no really easy way of solving it. But I think being compassionate and listening, and seeing what other people are thinking and concerns that they may have, that's part of the pastoral side that I think we need to continue to bring into this, which we're all lay ministers in this ministry, right? And we are in our parishes. Some of them are large, some of them are small, and large groups, small groups. We know a lot of people in different areas, and just listening, reaching out, getting people engaged in that discussion is, I think, really, really important, because it's not going away. And we've seen with COVID, certainly the depression and anxiety has gone up across the board with really all of us. And so if we add another event into that just brings a lot of concern into what's going on. I don't think we really have an answer, but it's just being compassionate for people.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dick. Yeah, I mean, we had our spiritual support group in here in Scranton last week, and it's one of those things that it continues to further stigmatize people that live with a mental illness.
Yeah.
That the terrible events, the mass shootings of over the past couple of weeks. The folks that live with mental illness get slapped with this stereotype that everyone with a mental illness is a potential mass shooter, which is not true. We all know the statistics. People with mental illness are more likely to be affected by violence and than perpetrate violence. It's just one of those things that we have to just keep chipping away at. I mean, maybe most mass shooters have some sort of mental illness or some sort of underlying mental health condition, but the overwhelming majority of people with a mental health condition or mental illness obviously are not violent individuals, and we have to keep that in perspective and keep reminding everybody of that. Well, thank you very much, Dick, for taking the time to do this afternoon.
You're welcome.
Our hour's up, and Ed Hopner, both you and Ed have been very instrumental in getting this ministry off the ground, along with the people in the parishes. And yeah, so for the folks that are listening, well, this will be up on our website, along with the other ancillary materials that'll be available. And as we continue to network, we'll continue to provide this information to everybody as we go along. And next month we'll have another webinar. It's going to be on dementia and Alzheimer's, right, Kate? And you'll be Kate will be the main presenter. That's kind of Kate's specialty, is pastoral care and supporting people and their families that live with dementia and Alzheimer's. And as Dick mentioned, that's part of their ministry too. So thank you all for joining us, and enjoy the beginning of the summer. God bless everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.